The parable that the children are learning today is the parable of the talents, which occurs in two different Gospels, and it's quite different in Luke than it is in Matthew. It's clear that Jesus used this kind of parable several times in several different places. In Matthew, it comes only 2 days before the Passover. In Luke, it comes just before Palm Sunday. So there are different stories, and the stories have roughly the same kind of message, and as with most parables, with all parables really, it doesn't do to push them, as some people say, to walk on all fours. You can't try to make every detail of the parable correspond to something. What you need from a parable is the feeling for the story. And if you get the feeling for the story, then that feeling, not necessarily all the elements, transfer into something real. Sometimes the elements do, sometimes they don't. One of the things that interested me is that in the Luke story, or in the time Jesus told this story, he told it a little differently. And the lesson is similar, but a little bit different. In Luke, there are 10 servants, not 3. He has 10 servants, and he calls in all of his servants and says to them, I'm going to be gone. Here's something for you to do. It does not tell us what he gave. Well, yes, it does, excuse me. It tells us that he gave 1 pound to each servant. So it's not necessarily true that the lesson of the parable is that some get 5 and some get 2 and some get only 1. No. The Luke telling of the parable, everybody gets the same thing. And I think what's important to us is that everybody gets what is appropriate for them to get. But in Luke, all 10 of his servants come, and he delivers to them 10 pounds, 1 to each. And he says, now, keep busy till I come. I like that. We're going to come back to that at the end today, if I get there in time, which I hope to. Then it says a new element in the Luke story. His citizens hated him and didn't want him to be a king. He's going into another country to get the authority to come back as king. Some of his citizens hate him. Then he has his servants, and his servants are told to use the resources he's given. In many ways, that fits more the situation of the church today. But the main thing is that at the end of it, at the end of both parables, we get the lesson that whatever is given to us, we should use. And this is something that we have been actually meditating on from different perspectives in recent weeks. Every place you are, every moment you're there, wherever it is an opportunity. Every place you are is a coincidence. We don't see things that way. We think something that we considered unexpected, oh, what a coincidence. Every place you are is a coincidence. Coincidence means 2 incidents coming together. And your incident comes together with the incidents of those around you every minute of your life. So every minute is a coincidence. And we're supposed to use every moment for something good. Why are we told to do that? This is something very important. We're not told to do that because God is desperate and things are just out of hand and he needs you. And please, get busy. I need more help. That's not the reason. The reason is that he is like a doctor telling you how to be healthy. When I was in seminary, one of the courses that interested me most was the course in counseling. And in the course of that course in I didn't mean that. In the course of the course in counseling, I had to read a book by a man who's very famous as an expert on the mind and how human relations work, psychotherapy, depth psychology. Erich Fromm was his name. He was born Jewish, raised Jewish, turned atheist. So we have an ethnic Jew turned atheist who writes a book on psychoanalysis and religion. And of course he's against religion. He doesn't believe in God. And he says, furthermore, if there were a God, we should not do what he tells us to, because people give orders in their own interests, not in yours. So mankind should do what's in mankind's interest. What we need, he says, is a science of mankind, and I'm just the one to deliver it to you. He says, I am an expert in the science of mankind. And a great many others, of course, have made similar claims. He says, let me tell you, after analysis, this is scientific, nothing religious or moral here. After careful scientific analysis of the human being, what's good for the psyche, what's good for the society, here is the rule for living, which you really ought to go by. Forget supernatural religion, whatever they say. Here's the scientific rule for living. For your own health, love your neighbor as yourself. It had a familiar ring when I got to it. I've heard that somewhere before. And in truth, almost every value system, theistic or non-theistic, anywhere in the world, God has managed to get that insight into the human psyche, that that's really the way to live. Some see it more clearly than others. Of course, we have it most clearly because we know about Jesus, because God himself came to earth, because it wasn't getting through clearly through all of the different messengers that he tried over the centuries, the millennia. So he said to himself, I'm going to have to come myself. That's in another parable that Jesus told. So God came, and he gives us his word. And that's where we get a little more precision, a little more help in just exactly how to do this, because where do we get the strength to love our neighbors ourselves? And we get it from appreciating and learning about God's love, accepting God's love, understanding God's promises,